And here today, because we have a very special task to do, to involve the young people and the youth voice into the discussion. That is why our session is honest and unfiltered, because we are here today to be so honest with all of you, perfects and professions and experts. One of the most important things in the WellBe camp is the inclusivity, and to make the WellBe as a community and a place where different children can come together, and with different background, they are able to speak to each other, to meet to each other, and extend their experiences with each other. So let me switch to Hungarian for the discussion. And first of all, let me introduce our participants, our attenders here today.
So thank you, welcome to you guys. Emma, Nori, and Bence, and Rosa are the names of the young individuals who are participating in our discussion over the next 20 minutes, and they will tell us about what are the important subjects for them when it comes to children's rights, and what they think have been neglected by the experts, or which may not have been neglected which are being mentioned, but which the children believe are not as important as professionals may believe. We will have the questions, and then we will have a word cloud that we prepared in advance, including concepts and notions, and the participants will come with comments on these notions. The first question I want to ask all of you is, what do you think is the most important children's right that everybody should be able to enjoy? So anything that comes to mind, please share. By all means, opportunity-based education, so that opportunities are created through a good education system, including, for example, the services of a psychologist available free of charge to everyone, because the school is indeed the foundation stone of our upbringing. And the important aspect of such an upbringing is not just for us to learn the subjects of the school, but in fact we are spending most of your childhood and young years at the school. So it's important that you receive all sorts of aspects of that upbringing. Indeed, I think there are three important fundamental pillars of the Convention on the Children's Rights, and for me, the most important pillar is the right to participate. And I cannot really come with arguments why that is the case, but in my opinion, this right to participate should be implemented more in many different domains of daily life. So maybe it's like that on paper, but we don't get access to that right to a sufficient degree in practice. In my opinion, there is a very important fundamental thing in everyone's lives, and that should not be limited, like drinking during lessons at school or going to the toilet, even if it comes at the expense of leaving the lesson. So it's well-being. So it's for you to have a good time in your own skins. That's the right you are talking about that should be implemented better. Nori, I would also like to stress education as a fundamental right of children, and security to be able to grow up in a safe environment. But we agreed in advance that I will be the first to tell you what comes to my mind, and then I forgot all about it. So I wanted to highlight the right to access information, which is there in the convention, and which I believe very clearly articulates a very important aspect of the upbringing of any child. So now I want to address you, Rosa, and then the rest of you, please respond if you wish. But Rosa, today We have heard a great deal about children living with various vulnerabilities. And you, as a young individual, how would you like to describe why it is important to treat such children in a fair way? How would you describe that to your peer or to another person who does not have a lot of knowledge about these things? I would emphasize to such a person that this is a very important thing to tackle it properly, because we may encounter an individual with vulnerabilities in the streets, in our extended families, maybe in class. And it's important to be tolerant and accepting. And we should not liken people to some kind of a human ideal. Rather, we should accept them as being a little bit different, but certainly no less human for that. So this is important because these people should not be sidelined. Would you like to add something? Go ahead. Yes, I want to join what you have just said. Empathy is crucial so that we can empathize with each other. And during the conference, artificial intelligence has been mentioned repeatedly, and increasingly it's going to be part of our lives. So let me ask you, are you using artificial intelligence like ChatGPT? I am using it, and I think it shortens creative processes, and it is great, very useful in that respect. So I am addressing you, Bence, in this respect, because I know that you are very much interested in this topic. So do you agree that AI can be used for good or for bad causes alike? How can we encourage the use of artificial intelligence for good causes in our daily lives? Yes, indeed. I don't exactly remember when it became part of our daily lives, because there are so many free artificial intelligence tools that are available to us nowadays. But to use AI for good causes and in an ethical manner is something that hugely depends on how we shape the surrounding culture and the rules around it. And looking at our own age group, it has been my personal experience that in public education institutions, that is at schools and at universities, we have no training on these issues, or if there is any training, it's very rudimentary. And I am missing that because there are so many risks, but also a lot of positive sides to the use of artificial intelligence. And in the world today, it needs to be taught to pupils and students at schools and universities. I fully agree with you that on these aspects we need a much broader education so that the positive sides and the useful sides can be underlined. And we also mentioned learning languages as a great example. And it was very positive to see that other people have the same attitude to it. And now that we are talking about your future and our common future, I am very interested in what you think of a notion that has being called climate anxiety. And I am addressing Nouri in the first place with this, but of course you are welcome to respond as well. Have you ever felt that kind of climate anxiety in yourselves? Have you been noticing it in yourselves that you are concerned about your future because you are expecting the negative consequences to happen? Yes, I have absolutely noticed these signs in myself, signs of anxiety, and I don't want to point to the decision makers as being the persons to blame, because we obviously have our own roles to play in that, but it is difficult to live our daily lives whilst we are not seeing any inclination on the part of the decision makers to take real action against climate change. And I remember that several years ago we had demonstrations and rallies, and I participated in those, and we were there in front of the parliament building, and there were speeches, and even people were yelling, but apparently our voices were not heard. So it gave us a sense of hopelessness. In me, it evoked the same sense of hopelessness. So you are feeling that the decision makers could not bother less about your concerns, about your future. Now that we are talking about your future, and it's mainly focusing on the educational system. That's where we have these questions and dilemmas, and the notions that are on the word cloud also derive from the education system. So I'm addressing Anna in the first place on this. What is your impression, the education that you are getting in the public education system, is it preparing you well enough for the future? And we can relate to Bence's topic here, because he said that he would like to see a broader-based education on artificial intelligence. But what is your impression? Ignoring artificial intelligence for a brief while, do you think that you get a lot of or sufficient education that you can use for the future? To some extent, yes. We are learning the basics. We learn how to count, how to read, and how to write. So these are basic skills that we need in life, and we get that. But this is a split of 50% to 50%, because in elementary school we are taught the basics, but when you go further into secondary school, a lot of things are taught which I believe will not prove very useful. It is only thought that they will be useful, but they will not be useful. So, for example, if you go into some kind of an art school, why should you learn about how the car is accelerating to a certain speed? But if you want to specialize in those subjects, of course you would enroll to those courses. But I think what we are badly in need of is some kind of a spiritual or spiritual and emotional foundation courses that will help us decide our area of expertise, so that they can inspire us by ideas, and then we can engage in discussions, and maybe interviews should be conducted, so that you are receiving help in identifying the great challenges of adulthood. So it's the soft skills, that's the term in English, that you would like to receive some kind of a pragmatic, practical training in. Yes, we still have time, and we are doing fine with time. So I would like you to take a look at the word cloud now that we prepared together. And I would like to encourage you to comment on these notions. We collected notions and concepts that you thought were more neglected, or where more clarification was necessary, and relative to which you wanted these concepts to be more mainstreamed into professional discourse. And you also said that some of the issues that adults are talking about are not so important, like the consequences of climate change, that you would like them to focus on your daily challenges. So the first that I want to focus on is welfare and well-being. So you said that your fundamental well-being is not up to the level where it should be, that you feel under pressure at your schools in your daily lives. Would you please elaborate on that more? Yes, with pleasure. I think it's a fundamental thing that whatever is part of your daily life, you should be able to do. And sometimes it's a very urgent case, it's an emergency, and you are rejected because the argument is that no, you are grown up now and you can resist. How about you, Rosa? I think, we are being raised to be independent, but not sufficiently. It should be emphasized more. And independence is linked to a lot of negative things, that you are not expected to ask for help and then you get entirely lost. And as Bence has just said, it's important that we are able to have our voices heard, but for that to happen, the generations should communicate with each other. And if that happens, then maybe we will realize that we are struggling with very similar problems. And this is indeed the foundation, that we should show mutual respect to one another. This is the way that will lead us to independence, so that we can test ourselves. A respectful attitude is here on our word cloud as a separate item, and that's exactly why. And I have been thinking about this, individuality, having an independent personality. I have been intrigued by this as well. Do you think that you are seen as a specific individual in your daily lives, or are you put into the category of child, and you have, so this is a concept that is imposed on you, and it is being assumed that you don't have the skills to adopt the right decisions in a particular situation, and the only argument being made is that you are still a child. I would like to mention the situation of children living with vulnerabilities. So there is a degree of otherness here, and this requires a different treatment. So if someone is better or worse at a certain thing, it doesn't mean that, of course, they need to be treated differently, but still with the same respect. Emma, I think we mentioned certain subject like PE, physical education, in the educational system. So can you embrace your own individuality? You said that you are not feeling that you are being treated as a specific individual. At the PE lessons, what I do not understand is that when someone is better at, so for example, running, but then there is another person in that class, and that person does not enjoy the gift of being good at running, well, the two will be evaluated using the same standard. But that's not fair. Their own aptitude should be taken into consideration, and the two should not be amalgamated. So individual traits should be focused on, rather than using a single set of standards. And let's stick to you for a while, because burdens is the next notion that we will discuss, first with you and then with the rest of you. Do you think that the load on you is just the right degree, or do you feel that adults are setting the bar too high, both at home and at school? My impression is that this is a yes, because the workload and the expectations are high and intensive. And in Hungary in particular, we have found that the expectation is very high, and the quality of the schools in Hungary is high. Expectations are high, and we should be given less homework to do, dramatically less homework to do, and the number of tests should also be reduced. I think the way you put it was that some kind of a general restriction should be set up as to the number of tests that are conducted on one day. So you are mentioning school tests, and that's a great thing that you have raised this point, and Bence will be able to relate to that on adults, because I remember that immediately after a break, there was a test. And then all through the break or the recess, you are being stressed about the test that is forthcoming. So, Bence, would you like to explain this from your perspective? Yes, that's when I thought that it is a perfect feedback loop that we heard in the first session, if I remember well, that in such a case, adults should think twice when we are talking of a school, for example, or of any decision-making situation at the schools. Yes, yes, I have entangled myself into this thought process, so I think I need to start again. Pardon me for this. My view is that it is fully possible to agree with what was said in the first session, because under these circumstances, adults themselves should think twice whether they would set up the same expectations towards adults, towards themselves. For example, if there is a school break, there is a school recess, why have a test on the first day? Or like, imposing sanctions on pupils, taking their phones away, which was a subject of this conference. So I say yes, that this should adults should think twice and should take themselves as a point of reference when it comes to imposing those rules on us. And Bence, you also said that there is a surprise that you wanted to share with us on this. We discussed most of the questions during the preparatory session, but Bent said that he also will have a surprise to share. Well, it's not a surprise. I put it in the wrong way, or maybe I put it in the wrong way. When we had the prep session, I didn't really have it clear in my head what I would like to share with you. But I already said this about artificial intelligence when I answered your question on that, Gabor. So I believe that our parents, and let's return to the school world, our teachers, for that matter, very often seem to be very old school the way they think. So they consider us to be children who have no ideas about what it is like to be an adult. So I think this is very offensive. And I wanted to respond to that when I said that culture is very important. Even that could be shaped in such a way. I am not absolutely certain in what way or through what means this shaping should take place, but it is certainly important that it should not be humiliating or offensive for our generation. That's great. And we have two concepts left. And to remain in our time frame, I suggest that we tackle these two together. And that is voice and security. And the two are interrelated. So let's start with voice. Nori, you mentioned this. You have just mentioned this, that the decision makers tend not to hear the voices of those regarding whom they are making decisions. So what are your experiences? You also mentioned the teachers' rallies. I believe that decision makers do not care very much about what my opinion is, and they say, I am just a child. As Bence has just said, we are being underestimated. And regarding the teachers' rallies, it was very clear for me in that context that they simply closed their ears. They didn't want to hear our voices, which made me quite desperate because when decisions are adopted concerning children, we are not very much asked about what we think of the decision that is forthcoming. So I feel that I'm not being taken seriously by decision makers. So you don't feel that your voice is being heard. Yes. That's exactly it. We also spoke of security or safety and the safe environment. Who would like to respond to that? I came up with an example for that. Returning to education at schools, I believe one of the most important point I want to make is that you as a school child put your confidence in a teacher and feel safe at school. And the cringiest thing is when teachers take advantage of your confidence, or maybe adults in general, because the same can happen in other situations. So when a child put their confidence into an adult, and you are forced to do so in a way at a certain point, and then the adults abuse your confidence, so take advantage of it. Who would like to add something more? Very often, I believe our grievances are underestimated, and they say that, oh, you are upset by such a tiny little thing, and that is just not important. And there is a shortage of teachers at schools, and every teacher is very valuable. And when there is a conflict between a teacher and the child, obviously, the teacher will be right because the teacher cannot be dismissed. So teachers are a huge asset, and in today's world, they cannot be substituted for. So let's assume that it is the family which is our safest point, and that's where we should start this, so that the parents should listen to their children. Obviously, it is the parents' responsibility to bring up their children, but children should be treated as equal human beings, and they should listen to what our interests are. And when they meet other adults, then they are so proud to tell their fellows and friends that we have children and they are interested in such classy things, and then they are proud of us. So I think this was great, a great opportunity for us to discuss these notions. We could go on and discuss 50 more, but for now, I think we can be happy with what we have had. So this was a good showcasing of what young people are interested in and what the professional points are concerning which there is a professional dialogue. So I hope that this session has been helpful for you as well, so that you have a better understanding of what children are entertaining in their minds. So I thank every one of our participants for having participated in the event today and having shared their views with us.